In this video, we are going to be going over decomposition. Decomposition is breaking apart or decomposing quadratic functions to find the x-intercepts. So let's get started. So our first example is 2x squared plus 6x minus 8. So now what we do is we multiply the x squared coefficient by the constant. So we bring this over like this, you can draw a line and write. So 2 times negative 8 would be negative 16. And now we find what multiplies to negative 16 and adds to 6. So what could we choose? So what I'm going to choose would be 8 and minus 2, because 8 times minus 2 equals negative 16, and 8 minus 2 equals 6. So now what we want to do is we write out our x squared coefficient, and this will cancel out, and you use your two new numbers. So you're going to add the 8x minus 2x, and then minus 8. You keep the constant and the x squared coefficient. Now what we want to do is factor out. What can we take out of 2x squared plus 8x? So we can take out 2x. And this would be x plus 4. 2x times 4 is 8x, and 2x times x is 2x squared. Now we factor out our second number. So what we want to do is we want to put a negative 2 here, and we put a bracket as we're factoring, and we go ax plus 4, just like that. So it's going to be negative 2x and 8. So that works. And now what we want to do to find our x-intercepts is set y equal to 0, which would be obviously our opposite side of the function. So how we would write these out was we would go y equals 2x minus 2 for our first equation, and these you would bring together like that. And then obviously you have your x plus 4, and then you go y equals x plus 4. Now we want to find our x-intercepts, so we're going to set y to 0. Like this. So now if you bring these over, it would be 0 equals 2x minus 2. Like that. We can bring this one over, and we're going to have 0 equals x plus 4. Like that. Now to solve for x, which will be our x-intercepts, we just bring our negative 2 over. For this one, we are going to go 2 equals 2x, and when we bring a negative 2 to the other side, the sign would flip and it would be positive. So now we have 2 equals 2x. We want to get the x by itself, so we're going to divide by the x coefficient. So we divide by 2 like that. 2 divided by 2 equals 1, and this cancels out. So x equals 1. And then for this equation, we would bring the 4 over, and as we know, when we bring the 4 over, the sign flips. So the x here would equal negative 4. So these would be our two answers for the first example. On to the next one. So here's our second example. So again, what we do is multiply the x squared coefficient by the constant. So we bring this over and make our little arch, and 3 times negative 6. 3 times negative 6 would be negative 18. And if you're having trouble with these multiplications, you can break it down into a factor tree. If you think about it, it'd be negative 6 plus negative 6 is 12, plus negative 6 would be negative 18. So now we want to find what multiplies to get negative 18 and what adds to get 7. So again, we can choose 9 and negative 2. So 9 minus 2 equals 7, and 9 times negative 2 equals negative 18. So again, 3x squared, this cancels out. We have plus 9x, and then minus 2x, and we keep our constant and our x squared coefficient. Now we want to factor, so we can take out 3x here, and we have x plus 3, just like that. And now here, we can take out negative 2, and we're going to have x plus 3. So in here, now obviously we put these two in one equation, and we have the brackets inside the brackets, which is our second equation. So now we create our equations. So our first is 3x minus 2, and our second is y equals x plus 3, just like that. Now, in order to get your x-intercept, you have to set y equal to 0. So we bring these over like that, and we're going to go 0 equals 3x minus 2, like that. And we go 0 equals x plus 3, just like that. And now we want to bring our coefficient over so we can get x by itself after we divide by 3. So first of all, we bring our -2 over, and when you bring a constant to the other side, it would be positive. So this -2 turns into 2. And now we do the same for our next equation. So when you bring a 3, we got to bring it to the other side to get x by itself, which would be -3. So we go -3 equals x. And we already have our first x-intercept, just like that. But we still have to solve for a second x-intercept. So we have 2 equals 3x. So how do we solve for this? We want to get rid of the 3 next to the x, or the coefficient next to the x. So we divide by 3. These would cancel out. And you simply have x is equal to 2 over 3. And these will be your second 2 answers. Now, on to the next equation. So now we have our second equation. So as we know, we make our arch just like this. Constant to our x squared coefficient, multiply those. We have 36. So now what multiplies to get 36 and adds to get 12? So it is -6 and -6. So what we want to do is this cancels out. We go 6x squared minus 6 minus 6. Include the x's, add the constant, and this would equal y. So now what we have to do here is we factor out. So here we can take 6x out, and it's just going to be x minus 1, just like that. Here we can take a -6 out, and it's just going to be x minus 1, just like that. And now after we take our 2 equations, so we're going to have 6x minus 6, and obviously set it equal to y. So this would be one of our equations. Put these together, and then what's inside our brackets. So our second equation is x minus 1 equals y. Now in order to get our x-intercepts, we have to set y equal to 0, just like that. So we do that. Bring this over, and we go 0 equals 6x minus 6, just like that. And so for this equation, we do the same. 0 equals x minus 1, just like that. And now to solve for this one, we're going to have to bring the -6 over here. And as we know from our previous 2 examples, the sign would flip, and it would just be 6 equals 6x, just like that. Do the same for this side, and it's going to be 1 equals x. And that would be our first x-intercept, just like that. And as we know, to get rid of the x coefficient, we have to divide by the same number. So bang, bang, this would cancel this out, and 6 divided by 6 would just be 1. So x would equal 1, and this is our only x-intercept. There we go. On to our last example. So for our last and final equation, we have 8x squared minus 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 plus 15 equals y. So now we're going to want to put this in ABC form. So what we have to do is subtract all these x coefficients. So minus 5, minus 9, minus 8 will be minus 14 minus 8, which would be minus 22. So 8x squared minus 22x plus 15 equals y. Now, as we know, we have to make our arch like this. So now we do 8 times 15, which is 120. If you're struggling with that multiplication, you can do 4 times 15, which is 60, times 2, which is again 120, or even break it down to 30. So now we have to find what multiplies into 120 and what adds into negative 22. So what this would be negative 12 and negative 10, because this would multiply to 120 and it would add to negative 22. So you go 8x squared minus 12x minus 10x plus 15 equals y, and obviously this would cancel out as we saw from previous examples. So now what we're going to do is we're going to factor this out. So we can take out a 4x here, and this is simply going to be 2x minus 3, just like that. And here we can take out a minus 5, and it's going to be 2x minus 3. This is going to equal y, as we know. So now what we're going to do is take our two equations and set them equal to y. So 4x minus 5 will be our first equation. 4x minus 5 equals y, and then we have inside of brackets, which is 2x minus 3 equals y, just like that. So now, sorry about the messy writing here, but so now we're going to find our x-intercepts. So what we do is set y equal to 0. So we go 0 equals 4x minus 5. And here we set this equal to 0. We go 0 equals 2x minus 3. Now we want to get x by itself. So the first step is going to be bringing the coefficients over. So when you bring this coefficient over here, you flip the sign. So a negative 5 will be 5. A negative 3, when you bring it over, it will be a 3. So let's do that. 5 equals 4x, just like that. Now here, we're going to have 3 equals 2x, just like that. Now, if we want to get the x by itself, we have to divide by the x coefficient to cancel it out. So up here, we're going to divide by 4. These are going to cancel out. Here, we're going to divide by 2. And these are going to cancel out, and we're just going to be left with 3 over 2, and up here, 5 over 4. And this 4 just disappears. So, in the end, x is going to equal 5 over 4, and for this one, the x-intercept will equal 3 over 2, just as so. And that concludes the last example.